Welcome to another weekly edition of Diamond Kings, the baseball YouTube talk show brought to you by the Reading Between the Seams blog as part of the Sports Kings Media Network. I don't know about you, but it's that time of year where every morning I'm checking the standings to see there's so many key series, key games going on, so many close races. It's a fun time of year. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about some of the key injuries this week. I think we touched on Garrett Richards' injury last week. Talk a little more about that, as well as Manny Machado's injury. Rusney Castillo from Cuba signed with the Red Sox. What does that mean? And we'll probably look at the AL wildcard race this week, maybe save the NL for next week. The AL wildcard race is just getting crazy with so many teams involved, big-name teams, Yankees, Tigers, etc. And then and we've got to talk a little bit about the Washington Nationals. They're the hottest team in baseball right now. They've surged to the top, so we'll get some opinions on whether they're for real or not. I can veritably say that no ice buckets will be dumped on anyone during this show, so if that's why you tuned in, sorry to disappoint. Of course, we do support the Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS cause, and in fact, I know our panelist Leroy got a big bucket on him this week, so he's already covered. My name is David Whitlock from Houston, Texas. I'll be the show's moderator as always. Before I introduce the other panelists, I do want to wish a very, very happy 54th birthday to Cal Ripken Jr., his picture here over my left shoulder. He's 54 years old. It's hard to believe it's been 13 years since he's played in this league. Seems like he was just running around the field yesterday for his final time. And within this picture here, you'll see a little ticket stub at the bottom. I got to see him play number 2,573. That was the consecutive game I went to in Arlington. Got to see him play, save the ticket stub, and he's certainly one of my favorite players growing up. But I've been talking long enough. Now I'd like to introduce my co-panelist, co-host for the show. We'll start with Lorenzo Mejia from Modesto, California. How are you doing today, Lorenzo?
Doing great, David, and I'm from Murrieta, not Modesto.
Oh, no, Murrieta. Dude, I keep messing that up. Sheep. From Murrieta, California. I don't know why I like Modesto. But our other panelist today is Leroy McConnell III from Dallas, Texas, just a little north of here, still sporting his Royals hat. How are you today, Leroy?
Don't wake up the Detroit Tigers. We're 3 games ahead of them right now. And I have a Cal Ripken Jr. story of my own.
Go for it.
I used to have the 1983 Rookies Topps rookie card, and I can remember at a 12 or 13-year-old kid, I went to the pawn shop and I sold it. So I wonder how much that card costs right now.
I think I might
$20.
Card values have not held over the years. I think I have one. There was a picture of him and 2 other players on it, and it's real roughed up though, because I used to actually play with my baseball cards. I'd simulate games and push them around my carpet and use like Lego, make Lego fields and stuff. Those are the good old days of baseball.
Oh my God. Sure. I just hope it's not in mint condition right now.
Yeah, mine is not, to say the least. Well, let's get going. The first thing I want to talk about is some of the real key injuries that we're seeing. No team's immune from injury. Earlier in the season, we just talked nothing but about the Texas Rangers and how many injuries they have. Well, they're out of it now. No reason to talk about them anymore. But there were a couple key injuries that have happened over the last week or two. Garrett Richards for the Los Angeles Angels, as well as Manny Machado for the Baltimore Orioles, or any others you want to talk about. I'd like to hear your thoughts on, are these killers for these teams? Are these teams going to be able to push past them? And we'll start with Lorenzo this time, our man out on the West Coast, an Angels fan. How is the city, the team reacting to the Richards injury, and is this going to be a deal breaker? Now they've lost 2 in a row to the A's. Is this starting to snowball?
Let Sophie out, please.
What's that? Oh, he's yelling at his kids. So Lorenzo,
well, the Angels. It's a tough situation right now. We're losing Garrett Richards. Everybody on Sports Talk Radio is talking about who they have in the minor leagues to replace him. And the people in the minor leagues is not very good. You have Chris Volstad, who got cut from the Cubs earlier this season. You have Randy Wolf. I think he's 73 years old, and he throws about 73 miles an hour, lefty pitcher. And those are the 2 big guys. They have another guy down there that's supposed to be good, but we don't know right now. I saw early on Twitter that Feldman, the pitcher from the Astros, cleared waivers. So that's somebody that the Angels might look to pick up. As far as the pennant chase, he has about 6 or 7 starts left in the season, and at this point, maybe they go 3-3 in his starts that he would have missed, but they're really going to hurt them going into the playoffs because now Jared Weaver has to step up and be their number one, and I don't rely on C.J. Wilson to be their number two. So definitely it hurts the Angels.
Yeah, I certainly agree that. As an Astros fan, Feldman's kind of the one trade piece we got. He does come with some like a $10 million a year price tag, but might be able to convince the Astros to cover some of that. But at the same time, the Astros are kind of trying to stay pat. But they need a guy, like you said, to kind of just go out there those 6 or 7 starts, figure out a way to go 500 in those starts, and then rebuild. And yeah, I'm a C.J. Wilson fantasy owner. I may not be by tomorrow. I'm thinking about releasing him because he kind of had one of those type seasons that if he's not a guy that he was 3-4 years ago, and Weaver's going to have to step up, and they have to get some good outings from guys like Hector Santiago and whoever else, and suddenly they went from that being a strength position to a weaker position.
What also hurt them was a Tyler Skaggs injury too, because Tyler Skaggs was their number 4 starter, the guy they picked up in the Trumbo trade, and he blew out his arm, so he's going to be out for at least a year. Initial reports were saying that he'll be out for the rest of this year and 2015 as well. So definitely they lose 2 starters that were key starters on the team. So yeah, they're looking to pick somebody up.
And this was from a team that was surging to the top of the standings. And, teams like the Yankees have been men down all year, that, 3-4 starters on the DL. But this is new to the Angels, so we'll see how they react. Leroy, your thoughts on the Angels or Machado or any other injuries?
I'm going to speak a little bit on both parts. The Angels are toast. I don't trust C.J. Wilson. He's been down here in Texas. He had a couple occasional good years down here, and he probably flourished a little bit when Cliff Lee was here. But other than that, when Garrett Richardson went down, that's their age. I don't know what happened to Weaver, because Weaver has not been himself anymore. And like I said, I don't trust C.J. and you and Mr. Jack. But I got a surprise for you. Yu Darvish did clear waivers. So if Artie Moreno wants to go in his pocketbook and pick him up, be my guess. Far as Baltimore, Machado, he was out earlier in the year, and it seemed like Baltimore had Steve Pearce come in and take over first base, bring over Chris Davis, who took over third. So I think they will recover, and of course they have a substantial amount of lead in the East. But the Richards injury didn't benefit anybody but the Oakland A's, who was struggling before this series started. So I think it's going to really affect the Angels in the end.
Yeah, and we've been talking all along that one of those 2 teams, we'll just assume for now both of them are going to make the playoffs, but one of those 2 teams is going to have to play a 1-game playoff, and who's going to pitch that game? Probably would have been Richards if it's the Angels. Might be Lester if it's the A's. It depends on how the season ends and who's pitching on that weekend before. But yeah, it certainly is. And to touch on the Orioles a little bit, yeah, they've been dealing with and without Machado. He was hurt earlier in the year, then he was suspended. You also think about how they lost Matt Wieters. I mean, that's pretty much their captain, the guy, longest tenured guy there. That you take those 2 guys out, who would have bet that they would have been 7-8 games up in the East? It looks like they're going to make the playoffs, but then, missing those 2 key guys, who knows? We've seen teams before with injuries, teams like the San Francisco Giants that don't have a lot of big names that suddenly put it all together at the end. So it'll be interesting to watch.
And who would have thought that the AL East would be the mediocre division of all the divisions in the American League?
You've got a bunch of teams near 500, and then you've got the Red Sox way down there. We'll talk about the Red Sox. Well, let's talk about the Red Sox now. They made that big move this week for Rusney Castillo from Cuba, Cuban free agent. They signed him to a multi-year deal, I think 6 or 7 years, about 10 to 12 million a year. Clearly, there's a tie in there that they just got Yoenis Cespedes from the A's, so now they could have a 2/3 Cuban outfield. So now they've got each other to kind of feel through, maybe help them adjust more quickly. We'll start with Leroy this time. What were your thoughts on Castillo signing with the Red Sox? I didn't follow the whole thing, so I know a lot of teams threw their names in the ring. Of course, the usual suspects, the Yankees, the Dodgers, that sort of thing. But your thoughts, and what does this mean for the Red Sox rebuilding process? They're not rebuilding, they're reloading. It looks like they're ready to contend next year if they could just rebuild that staff.
Yeah, and if they somehow did, oh no, not Cal!
No.
If somehow next year, in the off season, they get back John Lester out of this whole deal, they're looking like genius. Red Sox strikes again. Think it's a good move. I'm not too familiar with Castillo, but using Cespedes as a stepping stone to get this kid, along with having Big Poppy there, that's going to be a very potent lineup. Red Sox do not rebuild. I mean, they don't. I mean, they will be contending for a championship next year, and at the end, I tell you one thing: Oakland better win the World Series because if they don't, this was a blow to that Moneyball team, and I hate to see that Boston had the last laugh when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I think in most of our analysis, I mean, Boston was a real winner at the trade deadline. They had to shed some of their pitching. John Lackey left and Lester, and it was kind of down to who they're going to have around. But they can go out and get some arms, and that'll be the focus because they've got the bats. As I understand it, Castillo is not the pure power guy of like an Abreu or a Cespedes, but more of a five-tool guy, a little bit better defense, a little more speed, and potentially hits a little more average as well.
Well, he's in Fenway, so you never know.
That's right. Yeah, Leroy, you and I can go out there and hit home runs if we tried. Especially if, like you said last week, Monet Davis is pitching, since you said you were pitching.
Yes.
I don't know about that. Lorenzo, what do you know about Castillo? What do you think about this deal and how it might change the balance of the American League in years to come?
Well, Castillo, he's more of like you were saying, he's a five-tool player. I read that he has plus speed as well, and he's not that big. They said he's about 5'9", and the comparison that I heard, he's very comparable to a Ron Gant from the Braves from the early 2000s. And if he hits for power, they're projecting him to be in center field, but with so they're in center field. That's what they're expecting him to go to. Also, a second baseman or shortstop, which seems like a lot of money for a middle infielder. But at this point, if he's going to be playing their center field, he'll do really well. I also heard he's a dead pool hitter, which will be nice, so you can just play it off the Green Monster out in Fenway. But yeah, it's a really good trade. It's a really good pickup they had. He hasn't played in a game since 2012. So, of course, for the rest of this year, it's going to be rusty, but just pretty much an audition to get him back up to speed. And coming into the 2015 season, he will be definitely ready to go when the season starts next year. So, yeah, it's a very good pickup for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was kind of surprised to read that they weren't rolling him out there right away. It's kind of like, what's the point? But at the same time, let's get him some real-life batting practice. It's not going to hurt the team. The team's already out of it. It does raise some other questions about personnel with the Red Sox, what to do with Alan Craig, if he's going to somehow be moved. Since they just got him from the Cardinals, are they going to have to move him? He's a good hitter, but they're starting to kind of pile up on good hitters and suspect fielders. And so, like Leroy said, I mean, they don't rebuild, they reload, and they certainly are positioning themselves well. You go from a World Series title to somehow one of the worst offenses in baseball, so you go out and get a bat in Cespedes. The Lackeys, they can still go get Lester back. John Lackey had kind of run his course there. He's getting up there in age. Didn't make sense to retain him. So I think it's good moves all around. I think it's the Cespedes factor that got Castillo there because I'm sure the dollars were even across the board, and his little buddy there, his old Cuban friend, kind of talked him into, hey, come with me. It's a good place. It's a good town. We can own this town, and it's not New York. So in that case, it's all good.
It might get Cespedes out of his little run because he had him between the bat since he's been in Boston, and he was struggling a little bit at the end when he was in Oakland as well. So. Hopefully that'll help him a little bit.
His batting average has been down, from the you kind of expect a 280, 290 from him. He's been more in the 250 range. He did hit a monster shot off Felix Hernandez over the weekend. That looks like it cleared the control tower at Logan Airport. It went so far, but the power's still there. Any adjustments expected anytime you move to a new city, and I think we can probably all agree that Cespedes he's gonna hit. Once he gets into a groove, and having a guy like Castillo there, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. So good analysis on those. And we'll stay in the AL. It's not supposed to be an AL show, but we'll keep talking in the American League. I'm really intrigued by this wild card race. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. There's so many teams in it, big name teams. Detroit's fallen off so far. All of a sudden, they're looking wild card. About the time I'm ready to give up on the Yankees. they're having a good series this weekend against the White Sox. I mean, the White Sox are awful, but they're positioning themselves back into it. The Blue Jays just got Encarnacion back. And the team that I think is the best team but may not get there is the Seattle Mariners with their pitching. We've talked about them last few weeks. Their strong pitching. If they can just get some hitting going, I think they're the most dangerous team. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on where you see this. And I'm pretty much talking the second wild card position again. We'll assume that the Angels don't completely collapse or the A's don't completely collapse. It could happen, but which of those big-name teams that are out there spending, the Yankees, Tigers, Mariners, Blue Jays, maybe even the Indians, which do you think have the best chance of making it, and maybe which would you not want to face in the postseason if they did make it? And we'll go with Lorenzo first this time.
I want the Yankees to make the second wild card. And the reason why I want that is because I see the Angels making the first wild card, so they'll play in a one-game playoff, and the Angels own the Yankees in the postseason. Back in 2002, the Angels knocked the Yankees off. There's just something about the Angels and the Yankees where I don't know if the Angels aren't intimidated by them, but if they do make it to the playoffs in a one-game playoff, I'd like the chances of the Angels to go. So definitely the Yankees, and I really would like to see the Royals make the playoffs for the first time since '85. I don't care if it's the wild card or if it's they win the division. It'd be great for the Midwest to actually see the Royals in postseason baseball.
Yeah, I agree on those counts. And did you say you already have tickets to some of those potential playoff games if they were in Anaheim?
I'm a diehard fan, but you know what? I have a feeling they're going to play in the one-game playoff, and the Angels will host it. So I already requested the day off work. I'm going to get tickets to go, and I'll be there.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to the show after that. Well, there's a lot of ifs here, but if that game happens, we'll have to get the breakdown from you on the next show because that's nothing better than a one-game playoff or a Game 7 for sure. And you make a good point. The Royals could be in that wild card spot too. The Tigers are a little down right now. But should the Royals drop to that spot, I think they're positioned strongly. To me, they're more of a team that'll excel over 5 or 7 games than a one game. But a lot of teams are like that. So while we're talking Royals, let's go to the man with the Royals hat on. What are your thoughts on the American League wild card?
Well, last week I was trying to be real humble about Detroit. But heck, each game that the Royals win and Detroit loses, the confidence in Kansas City is getting greater and greater and greater. We can smell it. Can't taste it yet, but we can smell it. And the thing is, right now, you have to beat up on these below 500 teams, and that's what Kansas City is finally doing. They're beating the team that they're supposed to beat. However, Detroit will spend that money. They were pricing. You can't afford to waste a one hit and lose. You can't afford him to. He did his job. Those bats aren't doing their job. And well, I take this back. Minnesota has beat the living daylights out of the Tigers, pitching over 32 runs over the last 3 games. Right now, getting a little cocky here. Last week I was humble, but I'm cocky right now.
Ooh.
3-game lead, and 3 games is a lot to make up, and that's what brings me up to you, Lorenzo. You speak about the Yankees. Yankees are about 3.5 games out of the wild card contentions. The Yankees pitching staff is just as piss poor as probably the Angels. So I'm not confident in the Yankees trying to overtake Seattle for that second spot. Seattle is sitting great. They're watching the Angels and they're watching Oakland right now beat up each other. They're going to get their shot to beat up one of the 2 teams. Watch out for Seattle because if it comes down to a one-game playoff, and it probably will never happen, they could put number 1 and number 2 in if they have to win that game. So King Felix and I can't pronounce the name.
Iwakuma?
Yeah, you have to put both of them in there if they had to. So, hey, I will be looking more at Seattle, and as an Angel fan, I'll be worried because you can't outdo that pitching staff. And though y'all have a nice little lineup, it's still pitching wins in playoffs. We all know that.
Yeah. I think it's going to definitely come down. It's going to come down to that last week, and with the whole Jeter thing there in New York, how much they rested him yesterday, and they got to have him fresh for the stretch. But what is going to be his last game? Is his last game going to be there in Boston on the final day of the regular season? There could even be a potential one-game playoff to win that division or to get to a wild card. Then it could be a one-game wild card, or it could get into the 5-7 game series. So,
and they're not in the driver's seat. They're playing catch up. That's the problem. They're playing catch up.
And maybe their pitching's getting more healthy. I think who's the guy that came back this week and he almost beat the Astros, and then they may get Tanaka back as well. So the Pine Tar guy, who's the Pine Tar guy?
Pineda,
yeah. Pineda came back is back this week, and he's looked pretty good. And then of course if they can get Tanaka back. They won't get Sabathia back, and that might be a good thing. But that'd be a bolster to their rotation because they went out and got Capuano and some other starting pitching. So they'll be there to the end, I think. I think Jeter will will them there to the end.
We got another weekend series with the Oakland and Angels too coming up. So back-to-back weekends.
Right.
Down to the wire, like you said.
There's so many teams in the playoffs, and every weekend there's 2 or 3 matchups that you're looking at. Hey, there's 2, 3 playoff teams facing off against one another. So next subject, we'll move over to the National League now, and I've just been super intrigued by the Washington Nationals' performance. I mean, they won 10, I think it was 10 in a row before they finally lost, and there was the Atlanta Braves sitting there going 7-3. You go 7-3 and you lose 3 games in the standings to the hottest team in baseball. Then again, the Nationals won again yesterday, beat the Giants again, so that's 11 out of 12. They're the best team in National League with their record. They may not even be playing up to their full potential yet since Bryce Harper's played pretty lousy. But what are you guys' thoughts? Are the Nationals the team to beat in the National League? Are the Dodgers the team to beat? Is it a certainty that those two are going to face each other? What are your thoughts on how the Nationals are performing right now down the stretch? And we'll start with Lorenzo this time.
Well, the nice thing about the Nationals is their pitching staff is on point. You got Zimmerman there, Gio Gonzalez, and you got your closer in Soriano. The pitching is awesome. It's got a great staff. In the NLCS, I see them facing off against the Dodgers, and that'll be a great series. They got a great team all across the board, and yeah, so they're looking really good in the NL East.
Do you think Bryce Harper is going to get out of this funk and be the team leader he can be?
He has to, because at this point he's only hitting about 260, and yeah, he's just not hitting. He's not performing like the way he used to. Some people are saying it was due to his thumb that he hurt earlier in the season, but that happened in April or May. We're already going to be in September, and he really has to step it up. He's going to be. This is his team. This is his team that he's the leader on, so definitely has to step up his game.
Yeah, the power totals are completely off. Just a handful of home runs. I think for a while Madison Bumgarner had more RBIs than him. with those grand slams he's been hitting. And so I think he's got to turn it on. I don't know if it's the injuries or, he's still a young player. He's still learning how to hit. The pitchers are outsmarting him right now. But I think in the long, if he gets going hot, he could carry that team in October, and that's what they got to look for to get to the World Series. Leroy, what do you think about the Nationals? Are they the real deal?
They're the real deal, but like I said, I still like the Dodgers' chances. Washington, I would say that Matt Williams is doing a heck of a job managing that team. Almost, they're missing their superstar. You have Alan LaRoche, you have Ian Desmond. They're the North man setting the tone. They need their money man, and like I said, we don't know what Bryce Harper did. This isn't high school anymore. There's no folktale stories. That's all we ever heard. He's always hurt. We want to compare him to Trout. He's no Trout. He's no Puig. So, for them to get over the top, they need a superstar. Right now, they have a lineup probably equivalent to a Kansas City Royals. There's no big names. And the average fan outside of Washington probably can't even name the starting lineup. Heck, I probably can't either. But pitching, phenomenal. And, they probably can go head toe-to-toe with anybody in the National League.
Yeah.
The Dodgers good.
Yeah, I think them and the Dodgers are the best. You know what's going to happen in a 5-game series or 7-game series to get to the NLCS, excuse me. But the Nationals. Another thing they're missing is Ryan Zimmerman's been out. He hasn't been healthy. He's got hamstring. He's got shoulder problems. If you put him at third base, then you got to bump Anthony Rendon to second base, and you lose a bat there. Or they talk about putting Zimmerman in left. In fact, they did earlier this year. And then that moved Harper to center field, which then bumped Denard Span out of the lineup. And so Matt Williams has been managing that to date. it's interesting. Williams being a first-year coach, and then you look at Brad Ausmus, first-year coach in the Tigers, and both those teams you would expect they're pretty much of the same era. They came in without a lot of managerial experience, especially at the major league level, and they've taken teams different ways. And I don't think that's to speak that Ausmus isn't a good coach and Williams is. It's just that mix and match of personalities and skills that one year that can make all the difference. And I do think that I thought it'd be the Nationals and the Braves down to the end. The Braves did very, very poorly and dropped back, and then the Braves got hot, but at the same time the Nationals got hot. So they're still chasing 5, 6, 7 games, I think. And the Braves are right in the wild card picture, which 500 puts you in the wild card picture of the National League. I think it's the Nationals, and it's going to come down to Bryce Harper. Can Bryce Harper put that team on his back? Get hot. Just get hot for 1 month. Just get hot.
Has he ever been hot though? Has Bryce Harper ever been hot? And if he has, he hasn't carried anything. He's hot the first week of the season. He gets this big game, and everyone gives him a big hype and want to write articles about him. Well, I mean, he has not carried anything since he's been in the big leagues. Not once.
It's all about the legend, Leroy. I mean, I've heard great things.
Yeah, hey, man, this is Little League baseball. This ain't Little League baseball. We're not hitting 500 bombs in Little League right now. This is the big leagues. And like I said, I haven't seen it. I mean, maybe I've been blind, maybe I haven't been paying attention, but he has not been a factor. He has not taken over a 4 or 5 game stretch. I haven't seen it. So, I mean, if I'm him, I'm not scared to pitch to him. Bring him up. Right now, he can't hit it out of the doggone infield.
He can't even hit it. He's striking out too much. All right, so, well, I appreciate the thoughts, and we'll kind of wrap up the show. And as always, we do a little non-baseball topic. So as you can see, I've got my Longhorn Network hat on. That must mean it's college football season. I'm a college football fan, and there's a new playoff in town this year that'll be going down, 14 playoffs. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on which, if you had to pick right now, what 4 teams you think will be facing off. And I don't even know how they got it organized. There's 2 bowls and then another game that's not a bowl, that's the championship. But what are your thoughts on which 4 teams? And Leroy, and as a fellow Texan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just hope I can afford to go to that national championship game because it's going to be right here in Dallas this year.
That's right. Arlington, not Dallas.
Arlington. 25 minutes away. Of course, they'll cost $75 to park, so I'll probably walk from home to go ahead and start now. But basically, we all know there's going to be an SEC team there. So, top of the crop each year in, year out has been Alabama. I can see Alabama go ahead because, they're the draw. So, want Alabama part of it. I am intrigued with USC and UCLA. I like that quarterback Hundley out there. You don't ever hear UCLA winning the whole thing out of the Pac-12. So I'm thinking picking probably the winner of those 2 will make it to one of my 4. I'm in Big 12, and I'm not sold on Texas yet. Charlie Strong has to clear house right now. We, have to clear house right now. So there's going to be some growing pains. So OU has a quarterback now. So I think OU will be one of the 4. And ACC, of course, would think Florida State has an opportunity to be one of the 4 and hopefully repeat. Now, I think that if it was the 4 teams meet, I think Alabama would get the best of Florida State, despite them not having a quarterback that we even know of. And I think OU would get the best of USC or UCLA. So I would think that my Crimson Cream national championship would be OU versus Alabama, and all the talk about Stoops said we kicked their butt in that ball game last year, and Saban said, well, we only play for national championship. We don't care. I think the Sooners will take them again because I think that Bob Stoops is the man that has Nick Saban's number. So just for this coming year, OU will be the 2015 national champions. And then I know it's hard.
It's hard to hear, man.
Texas guy to hear that, but just one time, because Charlie Strong, like I say, he's rebuilding right now. So next year we can talk about Longhorns.
Yeah, I'm certainly not saying the Longhorns, but boy, Sooners and Crimson Tide are not two of my favorite teams for different reasons altogether. So I may not even watch that game if it took place. Lorenzo, are you a college football fan? What you got on the West Coast? What are your teams? Any thoughts on this?
Huge college football fan. Big Pac-12 guy, of course. So the beginning of college football is this. It's all about the starting quarterback. So my final four teams is going to be Florida State with Jameis Winston coming back. Might be able to get another Heisman Trophy. Alabama, even though I don't like the SEC, I never have, but you can't argue with their record. Nick Saban is just probably the best coach right now in college football. My other team I'm going with is a Pac-12 team, University of Oregon. Marcus Mariota is coming back for another season. As far as UCLA goes, Hundley's good, but you just can't trust UCLA when it comes to college football. Until they actually win something, they haven't won a Rose Bowl since back in '88 with Troy Aikman was the quarterback. So it's been a while, and UCLA is just not committed to football. You got to be fully committed. You got to be all in. That's why the SEC schools are so good. UCLA, they're more committed to basketball, the beach, and Manhattan Beach. That's what they're committed to at this point. And I don't blame them. You ever go to Manhattan Beach, you can appreciate what they're looking at. And my sleeper of the Final Four in college football this season is going to be Notre Dame. Notre Dame coming back with their quarterback who was suspended for academic
fraud,
dishonesty. I think it was dishonesty is the official word they gave. He's coming back when he led them to the national championship 2 years ago, and now he's back. So I definitely think Notre Dame will go. Maybe it's just me being the Mexican Catholic guy that I am. Got to go with my Notre Dame team. But you know what? Those are my final four.
Yeah, I certainly agree with it. What is your favorite college football team?
Okay, I went to a school where they don't have a college football team. We don't have a football team at Cal State San Bernardino. Right. And so around here in Southern California, there's so many college teams around here that everyone claims USC. But there's so many USC fans out here that don't even know where the campus is, never been to a game. And it just makes me laugh when I see these Mexican gangbangers out there sporting USC stuff. And these people could never even get into USC, much less represent them. I have very strict rules when it comes to who's your team. If I had to pick a team, it'd either be Notre Dame, once again, the religious aspect, or UT El Paso, the UTEP Miners from, yes. I have a lot of family out in UTEP. I've been to plenty of their games, got a lot of family out there. And UTEP, they haven't done much in a long time. When your biggest player, or you have two biggest players, is Chris Jackie, the kicker from the Packers from the late 80s, and Seth Joyner, the linebacker from the Eagles back in the day. And those are your two biggest claims to fame. Yeah, UTEP's not a powerhouse, but that's the team I would represent, them or Notre Dame.
Yeah, fair enough. I got to see Texas play out at El Paso several years ago when they played, in El Paso, and that was a great campus. Of course, the Sun Bowl was played there, the stadium there with the mountains, and El Paso, the busy commercial town. There's a lot going on there, and I certainly enjoyed it. Well, I agree with kind of both of you, mostly with really both of you. I got Florida State and Alabama for sure. I think. The thing about Alabama is they can lose a game or two, and then they still get in because everybody says, well, look at them, they're Alabama. So if there's a bunch of one-loss teams, they're at the top. If there's a bunch of two-loss teams, they're at the top. Florida State is certainly, can't pick against them after what they did last year. I agree with Lorenzo on Oregon. With Mariota coming back, they kicked our butts in the Alamo Bowl last year, and it could have been a lot worse than it was. The defense is underrated. With Mariota back, healthy, with that knee, if they just get past Stanford, I see them cruising into the Pac-12 championship game and beating probably UCLA. I would go UCLA there. Texas plays UCLA over in Arlington as well this year.
That's the first game. That's next week, isn't it?
No, it's game 3. I think it's the third week of September.
No, because third game is usually OU and is it? I thought that.
Maybe Texas is first week in October. My wife's birthday. Okay. Happy birthday, honey. I'll be watching that game. The fourth team I can't come up with. Nobody here has mentioned a Big Ten team yet. Ohio State would have been right there if not for for the injury to Braxton Miller. I'm just not sold that Michigan State can do it. I'm almost tempted. to go with 2 teams out of the Pac-12 or 2 teams out of the SEC because I do not believe in Oklahoma. I think that quarterback had one good game. Trevor Pryce had the one good game. Trevor Knight had the one good game against Alabama, but Alabama wasn't hitting on all cylinders. So they'll lose a game. The Big 12 is too tough, and you got to play everybody. I don't see anybody out of the Big 12 coming. I don't see anybody out of the Big 10 coming.
You're wearing your emotions on your sleeve, David.
So no Oklahoma for sure.
No Baylor
for sure. Nah.
See there?
Baylor's got to go to Oklahoma and to Texas this year. The way their schedule works, they got to go to both. They have both at home. Last year they had both at home, and then that's how they kind of won the conference. This year, both on the road. Not going to happen. So I'll go with one. I think the SEC will get the second team in. I think it'll be an East team. So I'll say the winner of the Georgia-South Carolina game is that second team.
Georgia.
Could be Georgia. So there you have it. Bunch of baseball guys talking football. We're a bunch of football guys too, because we're big sports fans. And but we want to thank you for joining us for another edition of Diamond Kings. It's been a fun show. I want to thank Leroy and Lorenzo from Murrieta, California, for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
And we'll see you guys next week.